Hello and welcome to another episode of the BSN Sports podcast. Today is Thursday, August 25th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is in fact August 25th here today, coming off of a night last night in sports where there was no Yankees and there was no Mets. So not a ton of sports on last night. You still had a good amount of baseball on though. I was watching a little White Sox Orioles, so saw a little bit of that game. Was just kind of watching it, and it's weird because the Yankees and Mets have played so many games this year. You know, whenever you get an off night where both of them are off, it's a rare occurrence. So we'll be back in action tonight though with the Mets against the Rockies. The Yankees will open up a 4-game set against the Rays in Oakland, so they will be on later, 9:40 Eastern. So even then, it's still going to be a late game anyway. So Yankees, Mets, both will be back in action tonight. So that's at least a positive. But yeah, a lot to get to on the podcast today. Like I said, even football continues to ramp up here. Jets Giants joint practice, you got that going today. You got a ton of other stuff. Final week of preseason coming up. So looking forward to it. And look, like I said, the Yankees tonight going up against the A's. It's going to be a good opportunity for the Yankees to continue to build. Right, 3-game win streak. You finished out the homestand on a high note, taking care of the Blue Jays on Sunday, obviously sweeping the Mets Monday, Tuesday. They did what they needed to do. Now you go up against Oakland and the Angels, 7 days or 7 games worth of teams that are first or that are in last place and second to last place in their division. A's being last in the NL West, Angels being right in front of them, second to last in the AL West rather. So both teams struggling. You should at least be able to come out of those games 5-2, 6-1. And if you do that, well, all right, now you're really back in a groove. So we'll get into all that later on. But the topics for today's podcast, we got a little football and a little bit of basketball. So a little bit of everything today. We're going to get into Colin Johnson. We're going to start things off with him. Really tough news coming out of Giants training camp. Colin Johnson, who's had such a good camp and a guy that was really looking like a possible piece to make a roster spot, is now done for the year, tore his Achilles, and he's done. So this is a very big blow for the Giants, a really tough blow, a blow where you had all these positives around him. You had the negatives with Kenny Golladay, but you have the positives around Collin Johnson, and you're thinking, all right, this could be a guy that plays a big role for us this year. Tears his Achilles, done for the year yesterday in practice, so a really tough blow. And I'll tell you what this means for the Giants, and where do they go from here in terms of their receiving core, getting a little bit healthier with Shepard and all them coming back, but still, you got, Collin Johnson now is down. It's a little bit of a big blow considering the camp he was having. So we'll get into that. We're going to get into the Donovan Mitchell rumors as well. We're going to start things off talking about the trade ideas, talking about, what they want, what each team wants in the deal, and then kind of go into should the Knicks make the deal, what my thoughts are. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you why the Knicks need to make this deal for Donovan Mitchell. There is no holding back. There is no, do we give up this guy? Do we get up that guy? You're getting Donovan Mitchell. If you're the New York Knicks, you pull the trigger on a deal you like. That's my take on it. We'll get to that later on. And we'll also finish things off, as always, with the New York Sports Update to finish things off. Yankees tonight against the A's open up first game of a 4-game set in Oakland. First game of a 10-game road trip, 7 out on the West Coast in California, Oakland, and then Anaheim. And then you'll have the Mets-Rockies tonight, first game of a 4-game set back at Citi Field. So Yankees hit the road, Mets come back home. So a lot to get to today on the podcast. As always, this is the BSN Sports podcast, and let's get right into it. So yesterday, Giants, some really tough news out of Giants training camp. The Giants placed Collin Johnson on the IR yesterday due to a torn Achilles, and his season is over. And I'll just tell you this: what is with the injuries in New York sports? There's been so many injuries. You go with the injury to Zach Wilson, or Mekhi Becton really started things with the injury at training camp to his knee. He's done for the year. You go to Zach Wilson in the preseason game against the Eagles. He gets injured. Luckily, it's not as severe as many thought. As we all know, 2 to 4 week timetable. He needs to get surgery, but he should be okay to return in the early part of the year. Then you get Kayvon Thibodeau that goes down, and his injury, similar to Wilson's, looked really bad at first, but he avoids a major blow. He's out 3 to 4 weeks. And then there was another guy in the Giants, I forget his name exactly, the 6th-round pick who was putting up a really good camp, tore his ACL. He's done for the year. And now Collin Johnson tears his Achilles. So out of the New York football teams, We're talking about 5 guys, 4 of which are knee injuries, 1 of which is an Achilles, have already been banged up, and it's all happened within a span of 2-3 weeks. It's not like this has been something that is spread out. These are 5 guys that have been injured, and it's a span of just a couple weeks. That's what it's been. And as a matter of fact, you get Thibodeau, and you get 2 guys on the Giants, Thibodeau and then the 6th rounder. They got hurt in the preseason game. That was on Saturday. Boom. Come Wednesday, Colin Johnson now goes down. Zach Wilson, Becton goes down early in the week. A couple weeks ago, I think it was Tuesday, Friday night of that week, Zach Wilson goes down. So the injuries in New York sports and New York football right now are really, really tough. And if you're a Giant fan today and if you're a Jet fan today like I am, you just have to hope that this final game between the Jets and Giants, and obviously the joint practices as well, just come out of it healthy. Come out of it healthy. And come out of it with your starters, guys playing well. Obviously, you want to see guys, prove themselves, with the roster cuts. Your roster is going to start to get trimmed down after the final preseason game. They're at 80 right now. Obviously, need to get trimmed down to 53 for week 1. Giants will be in Tennessee. Jets will be against the Ravens at MetLife. But that's what you want to hope for. Because the injuries between these 2 teams have just been terrible. Terrible. And luckily, there's been some, injuries that you thought were bad, and they weren't as bad as they looked. Zach Wilson, we all thought they was done, only out 2 to 4 weeks. Kayvon Thibodeau, a lot of people, when they had to bring the card out, thought he was done. He got up, walked off the field. Initially, they thought it was bad, but you know what? It was all right. Becton, on the other hand, here's an example. We'll get to Colin Johnson, really dissect what he's done in camp, but I just wanted to, have an opening statement like this because it just shows you that it's just bad luck. It is what it is. It happens. I mean, it stinks, but it always seems like it's the New York football teams. The injuries have just been all over the place. Then you go to Becton. He's a guy that when he first got injured, it didn't really seem like it was going to be that bad. The Jets felt, it might be just a couple days, and boom, he's done for the year. So you get where they don't think it's bad, it turns into being bad. They think it's bad, it's good. So it's all over the place. But another injury yesterday, and injuries throughout the league. And look, it's football; it's going to happen. It stinks that happens in practice. It really does. But it's these injuries like this. It's these non-contact, like an Achilles, like an ACL. Injuries where as a receiver, no matter how much you stretch, no matter how much you prepare for practice, you could literally be going, you could be a comeback route, quickly stop, turn around, and blow out your knee. That's the reality. I mean, that's for anybody. You could be running and you can blow out your knee while you're running. I mean, it could be for anybody. It's just how it is. So you get the terrible news yesterday that Colin Johnson goes down, 24-year-old receiver from the New York Giants. And obviously with the Giants getting a little bit healthier, Sterling Shepard back at practice yesterday. You obviously got guys like Kadarius Toney, Darius Slayton, all those guys. Alex Bachman, who had a very good game the other day with, coming out of the the preseason game. Wan'Dale Robinson's put together a really nice camp. So, the Giants' receiving core was really solid. And I talked a couple weeks ago about Kenny Golladay. And I talked about Kenny Golladay saying that, he was having a really tough camp, was really being lazy, had a couple nice catches, but also had the fumble. In the preseason game, had the drop by Daniel Jones. I know, Brian Dable said, Daniel Jones could have placed it better. Look, for a receiver that's getting paid $72 million, you have to realize what you're working with. A quarterback, that ball was placed well enough. It might have not been perfectly placed, but if you're a $72 million receiver, you should catch that ball. That's how I see it. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. Maybe it's just too much of a fan perspective. That's just me. But he's at a tough camp. He's really struggled. I talked about it. Since he's gotten his money, has really, really, really struggled. And a guy that, you think to yourself, all right, is it one of those things where he's going to get his money and really start to, kind of just, turn into this guy that doesn't really care much? And, you really wonder if that's going to be the case. You really do, because he's a guy that, got the big money from Detroit, and the biggest thing with Kenny Golladay has always been health. Health. If he could stay healthy, he's one of the better receivers in all football. Was relatively healthy last year. Played 14 games, or played, was relatively healthy last year. 14 games. But, didn't do much. 337 catches, 521 yards. Didn't do much. And he was having another tough camp. And then you see Colin Johnson start to come up. And you see him start to produce and at a high level. And a guy who last year played 12 games for the Giants, 11 catches, 21 targets, 105 yards, no touchdowns, really wasn't involved much. He's only had 2 years in the league, played his first year with the Jaguars in 2020, 14 games, played last year in 12 games with the Giants. So he hasn't played an incredible role with the Giants. But he's 24 years old. And he's one of those guys that, coming in, not a big-time player. Jaguars didn't do much. Giants last year didn't play much of a role, but came into camp, was putting together such a good camp. One of the best camps of any Giant on that team. His route running, his chemistry with Daniel Jones, all those things. And now to see him go down is a really tough blow because the uncertainty around Kenny Golladay. And I understand, you obviously got guys like Sterling Shepard and stuff like that who return to practice, but even his injuries, are always a concern. How much can he stay healthy? Is Kenny Golladay going to produce at the level you want him to produce? Is he going to be the $72 million receiver that you set out for when you went and paid him, last offseason? That's a Gettleman investment, like I said. Colin Johnson's a guy that put together a really nice camp. Brian Dable, Joe Schoen are, kind of dissecting this roster. I always say this. They are where the Jets were last season. They are going to see what pieces fit, what pieces don't fit. Colin Johnson's a guy, 24 years old, has brought a lot to the table in training camp, has done very well in training camp. And when you see, these other guys struggle a little bit, like a Kenny Golladay, when you see some health issues, some guys that are getting hurt a little bit in the receiving core, and a guy who's been consistent, has remained consistent throughout camp, is Colin Johnson. And a guy that, going into camp, you didn't think was going to be much, but coming out of it, you were hoping, all right, this guy might play a legit role with us this season, especially if Kenny Golladay struggles. He was almost like that safety blanket. A young receiver that's almost, maybe he's hitting his stride in the NFL. 1 year with them, COVID season with the Jaguars, rookie year, didn't work. You go to the Giants, last year only played 12 games, wasn't much involved. Now you're in the Dable system, you're getting used a lot more in training camp. He's kind of showing out his full potential. Is this what he really brings to the table? Now he tears his Achilles, it's a really tough blow. Not a household name, but a tough blow. And now you wonder what his Giant future is. Because he's a guy that, again, was not brought in by Brian Dable and Joe Schoen. This is a guy that was trying to prove himself. And coaches love young guys that have good camps, that prove themselves, that, kind of skyrocket up the depth chart. And when you have a guy like a Kenny Golladay, who you can't tell me if you're a Giant fan, you fully trust Kenny Golladay. I know he's put together a couple good days recently, but that's not enough for you to completely say Kenny Golladay is going to be the guy that he was in Detroit, where he was having, had back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and was a big role when he was healthy. And you can't tell me that you think that. Colin Johnson was one of those guys that you're like, all right, if Galladay's not it, Johnson could play a big role for us. He might have to play a big role if Golladay struggles and he gets benched. Because you know how I feel about Dable. I like Dable a lot as a coach. I like Joe Schoen a lot as a general manager. I think they're going to do great things with the Giants. I really do. They brought in the right people from the right situation. I mean, they're coming from Buffalo. They know, Brandon Beane, all them. Buffalo has executed the rebuild perfectly. There's a couple teams in football that have executed a rebuild. Buffalo was one of them. Cincinnati did an excellent job. They're another one. Trying to think. There's a couple other teams, too, that, Giants and Jets have not been able to execute a proper rebuild. They've been rebuilding, they try to rebuild, it fails. Rebuild fails. That's always how it's been. You took Brian Dable from an area where they executed the right rebuild in Buffalo. Had a young quarterback, didn't give up on him. He was struggling. They surrounded him with weapons. Got him tight ends, got him Stephon Diggs, got him a good O-line. Now look at him. Josh Allen's one of the best, if not the best quarterback in all football. They're going to be a threat in the going for the Super Bowl. We all know that. So you like what you see from Dable and Schoen in terms of where they came from. But I say this. I like them a lot. But I have a feeling that I think the Jets have a little bit more patience than the Giants do. I get this feeling that if Daniel Jones struggles, you're going to see Tyrod Taylor take over. I get this feeling that if Golladay struggles, you're going to see them bench him. They don't care how much he's getting paid, how big of a name he is over the league, how many people got him in fantasy football. They don't care about that. They care about winning games. And I think the Jets last year were a little bit more patient. I think Douglas and Saleh take a little bit more patient of an approach. More patient. They kind of just wait and see. Dable and Schoen, I think they're more, look, we're coming in, we're definitely going to rebuild and restart this thing, but we want to win. We're not going to be sitting through a 4-year rebuild and then on year 5 say, oh, this should be our jump. You got to realize in the NFL, You got NFL, you got about 2 years. Say it with the Jets. This is a big year for the Jets. If the Jets win 4 games this year, Douglas and Saleh are probably gone, and you're starting over. So, you usually have about 2 years in the NFL to revamp. Bills did it the right way. Bengals did it the right way. Kind of in the right way. I mean, the Bengals, the Bengals obviously won 6 games over the past 2 years. They had a big year this year, but you also have to realize their rookie quarterback tore his ACL in his rookie, in the early part of the season. So, the reason they struggled that 1 year is because they had, Ryan Finley as their quarterback and some other dude or a couple guys like that. So, that was tough to gauge, but I get that feeling. So now with Colin Johnson going down, if Kenny Galladay's starting to struggle, you might not really have that guy that you can fully rely on and a guy that's having that good camp. Colin Johnson was almost like that guy, that safety blanket. Like if Galladay was struggling, Colin Johnson could plug the hole and you could feel confident and he may be performing even better than Galladay. So it's a tough blow for the Giants. And it's a tough blow for Colin Johnson too, because this is a guy that, again, just like every player on the roster, has to prove themselves. Has to. Because this is Dable and Shane are coming in to a roster that Gettleman built. They have to undo what Gettleman did. They want to see what pieces fit, what pieces don't fit. Colin Johnson was showing a lot of things that he fits in the system, he fits on the team, and that he's a promising player. So this torn Achilles really, really just hurts, and you feel for him because of the camp that he was having and the connection that he was building with Daniel Jones, even with Tyrod and the second team, and kind of working with all of them. All of that, he just seemed like kind of a reliable receiver for these quarterbacks. He seemed liked around, with the quarterbacks, the guy that, they look to a lot, the guy that, they kind of found a lot. Colin, he might be one of those surprising guys where you don't see take that big jump. He was kind of on that path. Now he goes down. So a tough blow for the Giants. And now you don't have a little bit, your little bit of that safety blanket or the little bit of that reliable guy that you can rely on to fill in if Galladay struggles. You don't have that anymore. So a tough blow for the Giants receiving core. 24 years old. Like I said, to give you some numbers last year, 12 games played, 11 catches, 21 targets, 105 yards, 9.5 was his average per catch. He didn't play a ton. In his first year with the Jaguars, he had 14 games, 18 catches, 31 targets, 272 yards, 15.1 average, 2 touchdowns, and 12 first downs. So, like I said, he hasn't played a big role in his NFL career so far, but a guy that, again, you see this. You don't have to be, this shiny first-round pick or this shiny $72 million, Sometimes if you go get a used car, it's not always a bad thing. It's how you got to look at it sometimes. Sometimes these are kind of what it looks like. So this is kind of what the Giants receiving core looks like now. It's Galladay, Tony, Wan'Dale Robinson, obviously, Shepard, Darius Slayton, and then you're going to have to, wonder, all right, who's that sixth guy? Is it Richie James? Is it David Sills? Is it Bachman? Is it Board? Who is it? I think that's, I guess you'll see. Probably sixth or fifth receiver probably would have been Collin Johnson. It's not anymore. So, you got to figure out who it is, who's having that good camp. You look at the Giants depth chart right now. You go on ESPN, you search Giants depth chart. There is questionables all over the place. I tell you. They have some talent. This team just can't stay healthy. They can't. I mean, they can't. It stinks. It stinks to see that. But the Giants are, and this is the last thing you want to for Daniel Jones. Is a guy that he seemed to feel comfortable throwing to. Even the working with the second team a little bit as well. Colin Johnson, for a year that's so big for Daniel Jones. And I'm not trying to say Colin Johnson's the number one receiver, but he was a guy that was making a name for himself, and the coaches liked him. He was well liked around the coaches, around the team. That was like, all right, this is a guy that's making some noise. And if Kenny Galladay doesn't, get himself into gear, this guy might play a bigger role. Now he's done. So that's the thing. But you need all the possible weapons you can have for Daniel Jones. I mean, everything almost has to go perfect this year for Daniel Jones in order for him to be the New York Giants quarterback week 1 of next year. It almost has to. Because, number one, I've always said this, Daniel Jones has to, and I think everybody agrees on this, Daniel Jones has to make a massive leap this year if he wants to prove. He can't be if it's a solid, and I don't think Daniel Jones is the guy. I've said it since day one. So I don't expect him to make the leap. Giants will probably win 4 or 5 games this year, maybe 6 games, somewhere around that. Look, it's a rebuilding year. It's kind of a year where you're trying to figure out what pieces fit, what pieces don't fit. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. Who knows? We'll see. Season's 2 weeks away. This Sunday, by the way, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks away from the Thursday night game. But you as Daniel Jones being the quarterback, being a guy that's in such a big year for the Giants, he's a guy that needs just about as many weapons as he can get in their receiving core. Whether it's Colin Johnson, whether it's, Wan'Dale Robinson, even some of your depth guys. Because you can't fully trust Kenny Golladay right now. So even if it's a depth guy like a Slayton, or even if it's like, Slayton or a Shepard, one of those guys that, most likely it's probably going to look something like Golladay, Tony, Wan'Dale Robinson, first play of the season. Even if it's like a guy that's back up like Shepard, Slayton. Those are guys you need to rely on not only to stay healthy, but to produce at a high level. Because those are guys that, again, are, players that you need for Daniel Jones. Because if Daniel Jones wants to be the quarterback next year for the New York Giants, he has to go out and, the Giants have to go out, win 8-9 games. He has to put up like a Pro Bowl stat line and just absolutely go off this year. He has to. If he shows this little improvement, you're not going to do it. The Giants aren't going to bring him back. Because then what? If he makes a little improvement next year, then you're screwed. Because then maybe you win 5 games this year, you won 5 games next year, and now everybody's calling for Dable and Shane. That's why, quarterbacks are so important. And I think that's why why Daniel Jones needs to have such a big year. And he needs just about every weapon. He needs Barkley to be healthy. He needs his receivers to be healthy. He needs his offensive line to perform well. He needs the receivers to perform well as well. If they're healthy, that's great. If Kenny Golladay is healthy, that's great. Can he produce for a high clip at 17 games, or is he going to be lazy, drop passes, and struggle because he's getting $72 million and he doesn't care? So, it's a tough blow for the Giants. For a guy that was, he was one of those guys that maybe is a spark plug for that offense. One of those guys that creates a spark. Now you lose that. So, a little bit of a tough blow there. And we'll see what happens with this Giants team. I don't think it's not the end of the world. It's not it's not like the season's over because Colin Johnson got hurt, but it does definitely, stink a little bit to see him down after having such a very, very promising camp. And the injuries continue to pile up, not only just in the NFL, but not only with the Jets and the Giants, but in the NFL. And there's injuries all over the place. You always go down the road of, do you have preseason games? Do you not? I'm a big fan of, I don't think there should be preseason. I think there might be 1 or 2 preseason games. I think if you keep adding on to the season and take away preseason games, I think that's the best way to do it. People don't care. You're going to make more money off of it if you add more regular season games. There was one guy that made a point, like, do you do 1 preseason game for each team and have all the backups play? He's later, like 2 weeks before the season. And you'll probably get a lot of people that go, and you're going to get a lot of players that are just playing their hearts out because they're trying to make roster spots. I know you got to gauge these guys in game, and I know this is something that happened in training camp, but you see, Kayvon Thibodeau getting injured, Wilson, all them, like, all injured during preseason games. This is obviously during training camp. It's unfortunate. Some of this stuff is non-contact, which whether it's training camp or in a game, it doesn't matter. It's a non-contact injury. You made the wrong cut. It doesn't matter if you did it in training camp or preseason game. But some of this other stuff where you get hit, Kayvon Thibodeau's wasn't non-contact. That's something that very well in training camp doesn't happen. Or if he doesn't play in the preseason game, or if there isn't a preseason game there, that probably doesn't happen. But you can play the what-if game all you want. It is what it is. Injuries happen. It's football. So that's what I got for Colin Johnson and the New York Giants, and him down and done for the year with a torn Achilles, as a tough blow for the Giants receiving core for a guy that was having such a promising and solid camp. All right, so now we shift gears here to a little bit of basketball and a little bit of Knicks. Yesterday we talked about the Nets and Kevin Durant and him staying with the Nets. Obviously, us as Net fans, you should feel happy about it. You got Kevin Durant back. You should feel in a good spot with your roster now. And I think the only question for the Nets now is Ben Simmons going to play? Because Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving are both going to come back. The big question is Kevin Durant gets traded, does Kyrie Irving come back? Does Kyrie Irving also get traded? If Kyrie Irving gets traded, you hear the rumors with the Lakers and LeBron, does then Kevin Durant get traded? So there are always those rumors with the two of them. Now, the only question for the Nets, I feel like, is Ben Simmons. So you get that news for the Nets and Kevin Durant staying with Brooklyn. And do we get another star that's going to the Knicks not so much staying with the Knicks, but going to get traded to the Knicks. So Donovan Mitchell trade rumors. Jazz, Danny Ainge wants Knicks to remove draft pick protections per report. So that's the latest news that came out. Yesterday came out. You hear rumors all over the place with the Donovan Mitchell stuff. And look, I mean, the Knicks are obviously in on Donovan Mitchell. It's been clear really since the offseason started. I think there's been rumors, Mitchell, being the big Met fan, New York, his dad, all the connections. It feels like it would be a perfect fit. And you've really heard these rumors for a long time. Now things you feel like are starting to heat up a little bit. You see Kevin Durant staying, all that stuff. And I think this whole process of trading players, Donovan Mitchell being on the market, I think a lot of these teams were waiting and seeing what it would take to get Kevin Durant. Because when Kevin Durant was available, before he said, look, I'm going to stay with the Nets, I think a lot of these teams were kind of waiting and seeing, all right, what is it going to take to get him? Do we go all out on Mitchell and then maybe find out that it didn't take that much to get KD? Do we go all out for KD and maybe it doesn't work out? You always have to leave all, kind of put all those things into consideration. Same thing with the Rudy Gobert stuff. I feel like kind of set the market. You see how much the Jazz got back for trading away Rudy Gobert, and then you kind of wait and see. All right, the Nets want all this. The Knicks want this. The Jazz want this. All that kind of stuff. So the Rudy Gobert trade, I feel like set the market. And I also think now that Kevin Durant's not going to get traded, now you're going to see a lot more teams. And I think this is why maybe the Jazz have been a little bit hesitant to trade Donovan Mitchell, because they've kind of been waiting. All right, what are they going to get for Kevin Durant? Is Kevin Durant going to go somewhere? Now we can really stretch this thing out, because Donovan Mitchell now that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are both staying in Brooklyn, is really the top trade target out there. I know Pat Bev got traded, all that stuff, but he's not a top trade target. Donovan Mitchell is the top trade target now in the NBA. With Rudy Gobert already getting traded, you already see Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, both of them staying in Brooklyn. Kevin Durant really, the Nets and, KD releasing the statement yesterday, saying that, or more Wednesday actually, or Tuesday, saying that he's going to be staying with the Nets. Now Donovan Mitchell is the big target. And like I said, we've kind of heard these rumors going back to the days of, the early part of the offseason, where you obviously got, the season ended, and, you see that Gobert gets, traded, and that was big. I think Gobert getting traded, I think, was big because it kind of shows you, like, the Jazz, in a way, are rebuilding a little bit. And I truly think that. I truly think the Jazz are trying to retool. Gobert gone, traded him. And I think now they're also looking, they're obviously willing for the right price to trade Donovan Mitchell, because it hasn't really worked. They've gone to the playoffs a lot, haven't really got over that hump and won a championship. And I think they're kind of trying to both stay competitive but retool in a way as well. And that could very well be with trading Donovan Mitchell. And you hear all the rumors of what to add in it. I'm going to tell you this. If you're the New York Knicks, I don't think you hesitate on this. I don't think you do. If they want, one of your top young players like an Obi Toppin, even if it's an RJ Barrett, who I know is continuing to get better, every year it feels like he gets better at a little bit, he gets a little bit better, and you're kind of just waiting for him to really explode. He's a guy that, is he going to be packaged in a deal? You hear the rumors that they might be interested in that. This is one of the latest rumors. So, via Shams, New York offered the Jazz Obi Toppin, Evan Fournier, and a total of 5 future first-round picks for Mitchell. 2 unprotected and 3 protected, but Ainge wants more. It seems like Ainge does not want the draft protection, which is obviously, smart. So then you hear, according to Mark Berman of the New York Post, Ainge wants 4 unprotected future picks instead of the 2 New York reportedly offered. That's a big difference. There was also reports that Ainge wants RJ Barrett as a part of the deal. Like I said, this is something where I believe the Jazz are trying to retool, get rid of Gobert and Mitchell, but also try to compete. They brought in a solid amount for Gobert. They got a solid, if they can get a solid amount here for Mitchell, they could still compete. They might not be championship level in a couple years. If their young guys really turn into what they can turn into, like an RJ Barrett, then they can really start to compete. But that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to still stay competitive, retool, not be as, a force in the West just yet, but maybe a couple years really be a force, but still stay competitive where you're not completely ripping down the roster and tearing it apart. And that's what you can do. I mean, that's why when teams have big stars, they trade them away, because you can get a whole lot for them. You can get a ton. So if I'm the Knicks, look, we're talking about Donovan Mitchell. This isn't something where you're talking about trading for, let's just say Jalen Brunson. They paid him all that money. Let's just say they were looking to trade for Jalen Brunson, not sign him. I would not give up R.J. Barrett and all the picks for Jalen Brunson. I wouldn't do that. But we're talking about Donovan Mitchell. We're not talking about some, average player that's, borderline average, 15, 20 points a night, solid player. No, you're talking about Donovan Mitchell, one of the best guards in all of basketball, one of the best players in all of basketball, a guy that puts up 25 a night, 25.9, you can round it up to 26 if you like, and he's age 25. That's what I think is so big about this. He's 25 years old going into his 6th season. This isn't like you're trading for a 33-year-old or somebody even that's like a 28, 29. If you get Donovan Mitchell, 25 years old, he's in his prime right now. He's coming off of a year in which he put up the second most points he ever has in a season. Year prior, 2020-2021 year, he put up 26.4. Last season, 25.9. That was 9th in the league, by the way. Top 10 in points. Scores at a high rate. 3-point percentage, he's not great. It's not phenomenal. Field goal percentage, 44.8. He puts, 30. He'll be out there for a long time. He could be a guy that takes your team right to the postseason. You're talking about Donovan Mitchell. So when the Knicks look at this, and if you're a Knicks fan saying, I don't know if I want to give up all this, you're getting Donovan Mitchell. I said the same thing with Kevin Durant when there was rumors of him getting traded, when he first requested a trade. You hear all the teams being hesitant to give up young players. You're getting Kevin Durant. Like the Knicks, you're getting Donovan Mitchell. You're getting one of the best players in all basketball. You're getting a guy where the Knicks have missed out on just about every top ticket free agent. Or that too, but also every top ticket trade. They were supposed to get Kawhi, never got him. We're supposed to get Zion. I know that's through the draft, never got him. Look at all the players the Knicks were close to getting or were supposed to get, never got. Zion, never got him. Kawhi Leonard, never got him. Damian Lillard, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, none of them ever came here. Knicks fans thought they would. The media thought they would, never did. The Knicks have missed out on a lot of players. You have a golden opportunity. It really looks like, unless if there's another team that comes into this late, it looks like this is Jazz, Knicks, and it's just a matter of time before this gets done. If I'm the Knicks, I pull the trigger. You're bringing in a superstar. You're bringing in a guy that's one of the best players in all of the league. The Knicks have not had that in such a long time. They haven't had that game changer guy that's going to sell tickets. They thought they were getting that when they got during the draft lottery. Zion obviously never come here. Turns out Zion's been hurt all the time. He really hasn't lived up to completely the expectations. R.J. Barrett's been very good. I don't know. He's not going to sell tickets. He's not going to really put a team on his back and carry him to the postseason. He's good. He's not there yet. Donovan Mitchell's a guy that you're going to bring in, proven player, not take time to develop, boom, be a performer at a high level. And the Knicks, if they get Donovan Mitchell, you're going to be a playoff team. There's no way a team with Donovan Mitchell is going to miss the postseason. How well do they do in the postseason? We'll see. You can always build. And maybe you package another veteran or in the deal as a salary dump. Maybe you make another small trade and package 2 other guys and so then he fits with Mitchell. Knicks can always do that. There always is going to be that. It might not, the Knicks might not just trade for Donovan Mitchell. They might not just trade for Donovan Mitchell. Might get Donovan Mitchell and then maybe package 2 other guys and get somebody that fits with Donovan Mitchell. Guy that can score. He scores at a very high rate. He could dish out a little bit of assists. 5.3 assists last year, 24th in the league. You're talking about Donovan Mitchell. You're talking about getting one of the best players in all of basketball. If you're the Knicks, you pull the trigger. And I understand, you're in a process right now where you're developing R.J. Barrett. And it's almost like that's your homegrown guy. That's your guy that could turn into a star. Maybe, find a way then. If you don't want to give up R.J., find a way. Maybe unprotect those picks and put in 4 or 5 unprotected picks and Obi Toppin. And I think Obi Toppin, even as a Net fan, I think Obi Toppin's solid. I think he's a good player. He showed a lot more promise late in the year when Tom Thibodeau finally decided to wake up and play the young players. I don't know why it took him forever. It did. It is what it is. That year's over. A lot of Knicks fans were frustrated that Obi Toppin wasn't getting much playing time. He got a lot more playing time towards the end of the year. Showed a lot of promise. Obi Toppin's incredibly athletic. He's incredibly athletic. Brings a lot to the table out of Dayton. He's just a phenomenal player. We don't know what he brings to the table. He's still learning. He's still developing. You still need to see more out of him. He's a guy that you haven't seen a whole lot. Like I said, he's a very good player, but it's not like he's an all-star. It's not like he's a guy that's a stud. I'm sure he was in the dunk contest, but, I mean, he's a very good player. But, again, Donovan Mitchell, are you going to go with Donovan Mitchell? Do you want Donovan Mitchell? Or are you going to get Obi Toppin? Do you want Obi Toppin? You have to choose between the two. That's where I think fans sometimes get caught up. Sometimes you're going to have to give up young talent, and that's the advantage the Knicks have. They have a little bit of young talent. How much are the Knicks going to use Obi Toppin? How much is he going to play a role? He didn't really play a role all of last year until very late in the season. Is he a guy that the Knicks fully trust? Is he a guy that's going to get a lot of run? I mean, Knicks fans, Knicks fans, you think you're tired of losing. The Knicks have got to be tired of losing. Make the move. Make the move. If you don't want to give up Barrett, all right, then put 4 or 5 unprotected, Obi Toppin, maybe Fournier is a salary dump, and roll with it. The Knicks have been waiting to get this guy. I'm not talking about Donovan Mitchell specifically, but there's been so many years of big name players out there, big name players available, that the Knicks, I don't want to say swung and miss on. I guess that's probably the right word. Swung and miss on or missed out on. Because, you wonder how much really conversations the Knicks ever had with Kevin Durant and Kyrie. You wonder how much the conversations, they've really had about a Damian Lillard trade, when Kawhi Leonard was available. How much the Knicks were really involved. The media made it seem like they were going to be involved. Who knows if they ever were. So I don't want to say swung and missed, but they missed out on opportunities. If they weren't involved in Kawhi Leonard, if they weren't involved, in any Damian Lillard trade rumors, if they weren't involved in Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant, Kyrie, they missed out on. They just, unless, I think they were close to getting Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. I think the media sometimes overhypes what the Knicks do a little bit. I think sometimes the media, makes it seem like the Knicks are in on everybody and want to get everybody, and it's just not that. It's just not how it is. But when you get an opportunity where it just really looks like it's two teams, they're going at Mitchell, do whatever it takes. If it's giving up Barrett, you might have to cut bait. Are you gonna, for the Knicks fans too? I mean, how many more years are you gonna go where it's just, we're building up the young guys. The young guys are getting better. We're improving. This is a rebuild. Sometimes you need to get a guy that's going to, boom, win now, change the trajectory of your franchise. Sometimes you need that. Knicks will get that and everything else in Donovan Mitchell. What he can do on a night-out basis is among some of the best in all of basketball. Some of the best in all the league. Knicks haven't really had that guy much. They've relied on a lot of older talent, one-year deals, trying to scotch tape, teams together, make all these different pieces fit. Sure, they got to the playoffs in 2020. That was obviously a fluke. I think a lot of Knicks fans can agree that was a little bit of a fluke. I think we can agree on that. You have all that situation. That last year was a huge disappointment. You have an opportunity now to strike a deal for one of the league's best players. If you're the Knicks, Leon Rose, step up, make it happen. You have to. The fans deserve it. The organization deserves it. You need a big-time player in a big-time market for a big-time team. And you can get back to the postseason and make, big-time noise. So if I'm the Knicks, I go after Donovan Mitchell. And I go whatever, Now, look, I'm not going to give away 5 players and 5 unprotected draft picks. I wouldn't do that. But, if you have to give up some young talent, you have to give up some young talent. It is what it is. Sometimes you got to cut bait. I said this all along with Kevin Durant. You hear all these teams, we don't want to give up our young guys. You're getting Kevin Durant. You're getting the best basketball player on the planet. Sometimes you got to give up a little bit to get something. It is what it is. It happens. It's how sports are. Look at the Padres. They gave up a lot for Soto and Bell. I know the Padres are a tough example, but there's teams out there that have given up a lot to get players, and they perform well. There's also teams that have given up star players, and they're still very good because they got the right talent, they developed the right talent. There are teams that do that too. But, the Knicks are a team that, they just have had no success really ever since, that 2012 team with Melo and all them. So what has that been? If they don't make the playoffs this year, that's, 10 years of really no sustained success? Really, they've had 9-10 years of not much success. Really zero success. I know the 2020 COVID year, they was a successful year, they got to the postseason. But that obviously was not that was not the real Knicks. That wasn't. I'm not trying to crush them, that just wasn't. They missed the playoffs this year, had a really poor year. That wasn't the Knicks. That was just a COVID year, weird season. They just outplayed the back of their playing card. That's really what it was. But you get Donovan Mitchell, you automatically could become a legit contender. That's how I look at it. That's how I see it. So we'll see if the Knicks make the move to get Mitchell and what it will take. I can very well see this taking too. I could see this leaking into training camp. I could see that too, into the first part of training camp. I think that's what Danny Ainge is trying, to get this to leak out as long as possible, so that maybe at the last second the Knicks bite and give up a lot, and the Knicks, the Jazz feel good about it. And there's also a possibility this doesn't happen at all. There's also that possibility too. So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. Trade rumors continue even without Kevin Durant being involved. Donovan Mitchell, over the past couple of days, things seem to heat up. It's weird because to start the offseason, things were hot with the Knicks and Donovan Mitchell. Things then cooled down. Then over by the draft, things got a little hot again. And then things cooled down. And now about a month later, things are starting to heat up again. So it's weird. It's like hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. It's like, is this kind of the final stretch here before, or are the rumors going to start to die down? And then once training camp comes around, are things going to start to get warm again with the rumors? It's weird. They've had conversations, certain points. It's like they talk, and then it's like, Danny Ainge and the Knicks don't really say much. And then it's like Danny Ainge and, Leon Rose talk a little bit, and then it's like dies down. It's weird. It's like these periods of time, the off season, where you hear Donovan Mitchell and the Knicks start to heat up. And then it dies down, and it heat ups again, and it dies down. We saw early part was hot. Then it died down. Then around the NBA draft, it was hot again. Then it died down, and then now it's hot again. It's just all over the place a little bit. So anyway, so that's what I got for Donovan Mitchell and the Knicks rumors. I'd make the move if I'm the Knicks, just because, you're getting Donovan Mitchell. That's how I see it. All right, so let's get to the baseball games today. You got the Rays, Angels, Cubs, Cardinals, Mariners, Guardians, Phillies, Reds, Orioles, White Sox, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Twins, Astros. Mets, Rockies tonight. Mets come into tonight's game 79-46. Rockies come into tonight's game 54-71. 7:10 Eastern on SNY. The Rockies have Feltner on the mound. He's 2-4 with a 5.88 ERA. And the Mets have Jacob deGrom on the mound. He's 2-1 with a 2.31 ERA. Over-under set at 7. And as for the Yankees tonight, game 1 of a 4-game set in Oakland. Game 1 of a 10-game road trip, 7 of them in California against the A's. They're 76-48 on the season. A's are 46-79. Tonight, 9:40 p.m. Eastern. You can find us on MLB Network along with Yes Network. The Yankees got Jameson Taillon on the mound. He's 11-4 with a 4 ERA, an even 4 ERA. And the A's have James Kripalian on the mound. He's 3-7 with a 4.29 ERA. Over/under set at 7.5. It's a big opportunity for the Yankees to get back to their winning ways, get back to a real big cushion, double digits in the division. You're playing the A's and the Angels. There should be no excuses for struggles against the A's and the Angels. That's how I see it. As for fantasy baseball, in my main league, I'm currently winning 197-135. And in my other league, I'm currently winning 153-129. I got no pitching in my other league. In my main league, I've got no pitching. So, no pitching today. I had a little bit of pitchers going yesterday, so not much pitching going on today. So, anyway, that will do it for the podcast today. I think tomorrow I'm going to do my fantasy football preview. I figured we'll make tomorrow a little bit of a football Friday. Next week won't be football Friday. And in the week after that, football Friday. 2 weeks from today, you got yourself football Friday, first of the season. So 2 weeks ago tomorrow. And 2 weeks from tomorrow, it will be football Friday. And then Sunday will be the games. 2 weeks from today, Thursday Night Football, Rams, Bills to kick off the 2022 NFL season. So right around the corner. It's literally 2 weeks away. Right around the corner. So looking forward to all that. Excited for the football season. And you know what that means. When football season starts, October baseball is getting closer. So this is a great, great time of year for sports. So looking forward to all of it. And so that will do it for the podcast here today. As always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching.